Hello, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to another video. If you are new to this channel, my name is Frank Zhu, and I'm a college professor teaching sociology, history, and philosophy. I'm also an award-winning landscape photographer. I always hold the view that great thinkers are a product of various social and environmental factors. Just as the old Chinese saying claims, a hero is a product of his time. Particular cultural movements, historical changes, social upheavals, even extraordinary geographical features prompt and facilitate people to think about human behavior, social problems, morality, values, justice, etc. Those people who engaged themselves in thinking more deeply than others produced great philosophies and became great philosophers that we still remember and talk about today. For example, the Age of Enlightenment produced great philosophers such as Jean-Jacques Rousseau and Voltaire. The labor movement in Europe of the mid-19th century gave birth to Marxism. In today's video, I'm going to explain why and how Western philosophy started and thrived in ancient Greece in the 6th century BCE. I will also discuss why and how China produced great philosophical thinkers and became the center place of Eastern philosophy 2,500 years ago. It is true that a lot of intelligent people were living in Greece and China in those years. Socrates, for example, who is considered as the founder of Western philosophy, was a very wise man. Many of his witty remarks were very famous and have been quoted by numerous people ever since, such as this one: "The unexamined life is not worth living." His student Plato was perhaps even more intelligent. Plato's role in the history of philosophy has been so influential and so important that many contemporary philosophers have said that the whole Western philosophy is only footnotes to Plato. In other words, there has been nothing new after Plato. What all the philosophers have done since Plato is only to explain what Plato said. Likewise, Confucius, who was living in China at roughly the same time as Socrates, is also considered as a very intelligent scholar. In fact, Confucius is considered as the first teacher in the history of China. It is unimaginable to study Eastern philosophy without discussing Confucius. His influence is tremendous in China, and it is also felt in many other Asian countries, such as Japan and Korea. However, it is also true that no one was born intelligent. Would Socrates become Socrates in a different place at a different time? Most likely not. Similarly, if Confucius were born in another place, would he still become a great philosopher? As I have always insisted, the answers must be found in social, political, and even geographical environments in which they were born and lived. For example, the major reason why Western philosophy being born in ancient Greece is its particular social environment created by its unique geographical features. In terms of geography, Greece is divided and isolated by numerous mountains, rivers, and seas. As a result, it was difficult for a large population to live in one place. Most communities were rather small. Also, because of this geographical feature, and considering the transportation difficulties back in those days, a small community in one place was largely separated from others. Eventually, each small community turned itself into what historians called city-state. Each city-state was politically independent from another and taking care of its own social and political issues. Of course, those city-states were culturally connected. They all spoke Greek, for example. They all believed in the same gods and goddesses. And they sent athletes to the Olympic Games, which were held every 4 years and which were open to all the Greeks. The small size of population in the city-state meant that every citizen could participate in political debates and voice their own opinions in the decision-making process. So when it came to deciding unimportant issues that would affect all the people within the city-state, all the citizens could gather together and vote for a decision. As a matter of fact, such participation was required by law in many city-states. Thus, the so-called direct democracy was created. In fact, it was in ancient Greece that, for the first time in history, democracy was practiced. Now, I think I should explain briefly the term direct democracy. It is usually used as opposed to representative democracy. The former means that every citizen participates in every decision-making process, whereas the latter means one person is elected to represent a certain number of people. This elected person participates in the decision-making process, supposedly in the best interests of those people that he or she represents. Every citizen in these city-states was allowed to take part in the decision-making process. That is, they could vote. But keep in mind, only males were citizens. Women and children could not vote. For a long time in ancient Greece, the city-state of Athens was leading other city-states in such a style of democracy and therefore produced many great philosophers. Now, you may ask, what did this direct democracy have to do with philosophy? Well, the opportunity to participate and voice your own opinions required that you become an eloquent public speaker with well-thought-out ideas, which in turn demanded that you have the skills of critical and logical thinking to produce clear and feasible ideas. When you do a lot of thinking, you become wise. Philosophy, which literally means love of wisdom, was thus born. Many of those who thought deeply about life and the human world became great philosophers. Among them, Socrates and his student Plato probably did the most thinking, and therefore became the most famous philosophers in the West. The broad democratic cultural tradition, which was made possible by its geographical features, encouraged individual independence of mind, the questioning of authority, and debates among peers. Such environment gave birth to philosophy. I think it is worth mentioning that the many public spaces in ancient Athens were also conducive to the development of philosophy. The agora, for example, which is the heart of the Athenian life because of its open markets and gymnasiums, was a hub for political debates and exchange of ideas, attracting many intelligent people. Socrates was often seen standing on the corner of streets, asking people philosophical questions and preaching his philosophical ideas, such as, "The unexamined life is not worth living." Those public spaces proved to be fertile places for philosophical inquiry. Almost at the same time, ancient China was becoming the birthplace of many great philosophers, but for different reasons. It was not geographical features, but military conquests and social upheavals that created conditions which gave birth to philosophical thinking. Chinese philosophy became prosperous during the so-called Warring States period, which started around 470 BCE. It was a time when many small kingdoms were mercilessly fighting for domination. Everywhere you could see military fights, political uncertainty, social chaos, miserable life, and poverty, all of which set people thinking, what's wrong with us? What's wrong with the world? Those people who did a lot of thinking tried to come up with solutions. And finding solutions made them think even more deeply about human beings and the society in general. We know that when you are engaged in serious thinking, you analyze a problem and critique and evaluate all aspects of the problem. Great philosophical ideas and theories were thus produced. The Warring States period produced many great thinkers. Among them, Confucius apparently did more thinking than anybody else of his contemporaries, and thus became the most famous. He traveled extensively, eagerly preaching his ideas and beliefs. In his opinion, to bring back social order and stability, developing moral character and teaching ethical behavior were priority. As he gathered more and more followers, a distinct school of philosophical thinking was developed, which became known as Confucianism. By the way, you may want to check out my videos on Confucius and Confucianism on my channel if you are interested. Lao Tzu, who was the founder of Taoism, was also living during the Warring States period. Like Confucius, Lao Tzu was deeply concerned with the miserable life caused by ongoing wars and was searching for solutions. Similar to Confucianism, Taoism was also a reaction to the social disharmony and upheavals. But unlike Confucius, Lao Tzu proposed different ways of dealing with the social disorder and instability. He emphasized harmony with nature, simple life, and natural order of things. You may want to check out my videos on Lao Tzu and Taoism if you are interested. To conclude this video, unique physical and social conditions led to the birth of Western philosophy in ancient Greece and Eastern philosophy in ancient China. Over time, as a result of different social developments, Western and Eastern philosophies went along different roads. Generally speaking, Western philosophical thinking is individualistic, emphasizing individual rights and personal achievements. In the East, philosophers pay more attention to community and harmony. Western philosophers have been more rational and analytical, while Eastern philosophers stress intuitive and spiritual aspects. Western philosophy tends to be more academic, whereas Eastern philosophy tends to be more political. Western philosophy is more ideal than practical, whereas Eastern philosophy is more practical than ideal. Well, I think that is all for today. As always, thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.